the revolutionary new Raptor engines by SpaceX. Elon Musk is very ambitious in his mission to colonize Mars. His company, SpaceX, has reinterpreted different technologies while also inventing some extraordinary ones to make this happen. The most exclusive invention of SpaceX is its Raptor engine. These methane-powered powerhouses can brilliantly make Musk's 2024 mission successful. These Raptor engines aren't used currently in the Falcon 9 reusable rockets. The Raptor engines are specially invented for SpaceX's Starship. Surprisingly, rockets were present even during the medieval era, though today we are focusing on rockets that can travel in space. The idea of such rockets can be traced back to the late 19th century. In 1898, a Russian schoolteacher, Konstantin Zlotowsky, proposed that if scientists used liquid propellant in rockets, they'd be able to send rockets into space. Konstantin Zlotowsky believed that the exhaust velocity of escaping gases from the rocket hinders its range and its speed. This discovery and further researches made Konstantin the father of modern astronomics. Indeed, Konstantin Zlotowsky was the first human to have a wild dream to escape from the Earth into space simply by strapping a tube of burning gases on himself. His dream came true only after a few decades. Rockets were being manufactured, but not as something to travel into space, but were used as weapons. Together, some brilliant engineers like Robert H. Goddard from America and Hermann Oberth from Germany worked on developing a rocket engine. Rocket technology was already on its way to become an entirely different field of study at the end of the Great War. New technology was being developed. The competition to reach space first was being fueled by the entire world. Special kind of rockets was being manufactured to overcome the escape velocity and break free from Earth's gravity. Though the task wasn't easy at all, it was pretty complicated. Then, on October 4th, 1957, something historic happened. Sputnik 1. The first ever artificial satellite was carried into space by the Sputnik rocket. The Sputnik was the first ever rocket to escape the Earth's gravity. The base of Sputnik was the R-7 Semyorka ICBM by Soviet Union, though it was an almost entirely modified version. Sputnik proved that traveling to space is possible by escaping the gravity of the Earth. The scientists down on Earth were on fire, and new technologies were being developed. Another breakthrough left humans in shock. The USA sent its Saturn V rocket into space. The Saturn V took the first ever humans that escaped the Earth's gravity to the moon. This was considered the most significant achievement of humanity. After this, many countries started working on their missions to travel into space. The EU Space Agency was launched in China. On the other hand, India was working on its first rocket designs. The only purpose of these inventions was to break free from Earth's gravity and travel into space. The mission of SpaceX is to reach Mars. The mission is quite tricky, so they reinterpreted the fundamentals of rocket engines. A whole new rocket design with an entirely different engine will be required to reach Mars and return to Earth. SpaceX started to work from scratch to develop the big Falcon rocket, which is now called the Starship. The Starship is a stainless steel alloy-based spaceship. A booster stage called the Super Heavy is used to support it. SpaceX is totally against one-time use rockets, typically used by NASA in its space missions. They think that NASA is wasting millions of dollars. SpaceX uses reusable rockets. It took SpaceX several years of hard work to make their idea of reusable rockets into reality. Now, the Falcon 9 by SpaceX is an industry standard rocket when it comes to reusable rockets. SpaceX stuck to its reusable technology and future inventions too. SpaceX wasn't joking when they said they'd reconsidering the fundamentals of rocket engines. They meant it because the Raptor engine has a full-flow staged combustion cycle. Though this technology has previously experimented with several times, the Raptor will be the first engine to inhabit this unconventional gas cycle. The first ever spacebound vehicle to use this technology is the Raptor. Simply, the gas cycle alternatively uses oxidizer-rich and fuel-rich pre-burners. Both of these propellants flow during this cycle. The oxidizers and fuels are in complete control by the Raptor engines. The turbines on the engine work at low pressure and a cooler state with the help of full flow stage combustion. The increase in the flow of mass further leads to an increase in engine life and high reliability. This type of engine is exactly what SpaceX wanted for its Starship. Such an engine can be used multiple times without any kind of service. This invention will significantly reduce expenses. For now, the Raptor engine can take 25 flights. 25 different rockets might have traveled to the same destination if there was no such thing as reusable rockets. The engineers chose to fuel up the Raptor with cryogenic liquid methane. This is something new when it comes to fuel-up engines. Typically, 1 or RP1 is used as rocket fuel in almost every rocket. The RP1 is simply a much more refined version of jet fuel. Many SpaceX engines, like Falcon 9's Merlin engine and Kestrel engines, use the RP1 fuel. Initially, the SpaceX fans were confused about their decision to use cryogenic liquid methane and liquid oxygen LOX to make fuel for the Raptor, though SpaceX stuck to its idea to produce methane, the primary fuel for its Raptor engine. Keeping in view the geographical and environmental factors of Mars, SpaceX chose an unorthodox design for its Starship. They also kept NASA's mission to Mars in consideration. The mission proved that Mars's atmosphere is full of CO2 and the ground has a large amount of frozen water. SpaceX thought to use situ resource utilization to return to Earth. SpaceX aims to colonize Mars without any kind of support from earthly resources. They want to use the Saboteur process. This process is tried and tested and will be used by the astronaut colony on Mars. They will convert methane from the CO2 in water and then derive oxygen from it. The question that now arises that we can't use hydrogen as fuel for the Raptors. The answer is that though hydrogen is a much better option, it'll complex the engine and the rocket's design. It will require things like extreme temperature and more giant fuel tanks. The complexity is against the aim of SpaceX's cheap and straightforward rockets. To make the Starship reliable, cheap, and simple, methane fuel has been chosen. The Raptor has a unique look because of its blue flame that comes from the burning of methane. The Raptor engine was tested in August 2020. It was fitted with an SN5 Starship. The SN5 flew up to 500 feet from the ground only with the support of a single Raptor. It also returned safely. In 2020, several short-range experiments were done. The first high-altitude mission was held on 9th of December 2020. 3 Raptors were attached to an SN8. It successfully flew up to 10 kilometers in the air, but one of the 3 Raptors failed while returning. The Raptor failed again during the high-altitude experiments carried out in February and March 2021. One thing we know about SpaceX is they don't step down. After multiple failures, finally on May 6, it was a historic day as a man-powered spaceflight successfully flew at such a high altitude and safely returned and landed. If things went as expected by SpaceX, it wouldn't take more than a couple of months for the news that the Raptor will be taking the first ever humans to Mars.